1. It is a brand new edition of Flyers Daily. How about a Monday, the 21st of October edition, Flyers Daily, as always, presented by Ticketmaster. Make more memories live. An Ask Billy edition as well. Hashtag Ask Billy. Joining us from PhiladelphiaFlyers.com, NHL.com, and HockeyBuzz.com, it is Bill Meltzer. Bill, how you doing?
I am doing well. A lot of late nights this past week with all those Flyers after dark 10 p.m. games.
Yeah.
But that part of the season, that trip, is over. The Flyers just have to do the California trip. They'll play Colorado and whatever. But there's a limited number of those really late kind of
only
games
one
left.
One 10 o'clocker. That's it. January 2nd in Vegas.
That's right. That's right. Because the other ones are much earlier games. Yeah.
We dodged a bullet, Bill, in the schedule. It's the San Jose 10:30 puck drop at the Shark Tank because they're playing New Year's Eve, so it's 8 o'clock local time. But one calendar full week, 8 days in essence into the season, and it hasn't been a great start, Bill. We go back to last year and the start that they got off to, and I thought that really did a lot to instill belief in the team early when all the prognosticators, pseudo-experts, everybody had low expectations. They're not going to be able to build belief by the start they're off to right now at 1-3-1.
No. I think that, to me, the most disappointing game that they've played so far this year, and really it's one period more than anything else. They have other disappointing stretches, don't get me wrong, but this game in Seattle, that was the difference between coming back 2-1-1 and it's a relatively successful trip versus 1-2-1, and it's not a successful trip.
Yeah, it really hung in the balance of that one game, didn't it?
It really did, and there's other things you can look at too. Not closing Edmonton out. Mm-hmm. Holding a lead and holding a couple leads, winning 2-0 at one point, right? And you knew Edmonton was going to make their push back, and they were struggling early on. I think because they kept Draisaitl and McDavid so quiet for most of the night, it was pretty disappointing how all that turned out. But you don't want to start by leaving points on the table right off the get-go. The home opener, I do want to say that we discussed this actually multiple times before they even came back from the trip when the schedule came out, saying that one's gonna be a brutal game, just because, and you can't use the travel as an excuse. I get that, right? I get that. On the other hand, when I've seen teams come back from that kind of travel and have a quick turnaround, I've never seen a team play well, especially in the first period.
Yeah,
you know that the first period is you're not going to have legs.
Yep.
Your goalie's going to have to bail you out, and then you hope that you hang in there and you get going as the game gets along. Obviously, a terrible first period, totally one-sided.
Yeah.
Sam Mercer was the only reason it was only 1-0. To me, there's so many little plays in the course of a game that can change the complexion of it. 4 minutes into the second period, there was that play. There was that play. It was Frost to Michkov to Eric Johnson.
Yep.
Half the net's open. When he didn't score there, even if it's still 1-0 at that point, oh boy, there's a pretty good chance we're getting shut out tonight.
Yeah.
You just felt it. You just felt it.
Yeah.
And then you had a coverage breakdown in the first goal, which John Tortorella broke it down. It was Scott Lawton losing his guy on the wall. On the second one, you had two coverage breakdowns. Honestly, one of them was Owen Tippett. Mm-hmm. The other one to me was kind of Igor Zamula.
Totally agree. I think I sent that to you.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that then you give up one run right off a face-off. And now instead of a one-goal game or even a 1-1 game, you're down 3-0. It's a cavernous kind of thing. And the third period, the Canucks just kind of knew, don't play stupid.
Yeah.
Just don't give them anything excited about them, and they got this game under control. They really just shut it down in the third.
I thought they did a good job getting to the inside against the Canucks, but I never felt like, I said this to Brian Smith after the game, I didn't feel like they got goalied.
Yeah.
He played well, Lankinen played well, but I thought the Flyers were their own worst enemy in that game.
I did too. I thought most of their better looks either hit the post or they missed the net, and there weren't a ton of great looks to begin with. It wasn't like they really gave them a difficult game. He stopped 26. How many actual really difficult saves did he have to make? Not really very many.
Yeah.
I knew that game was going to be a struggle. Obviously, hoping for a better outcome, hoping for more guys to kind of step up a little bit. When you look at the season so far, 5-on-5 play has not been nearly good enough. There's been too many breakdowns, and they're not scoring.
Yep.
Right. That's been, to me, a big concern. Getting better 5-on-5 this year was a big thing coming in. Obviously, Fedotov has had 2 starts that were not very good. On the flip side, I think Sam Ersson and 2 of his starts have been really good.
Yeah.
The Vancouver game was unfortunate because he was single. That would have been a loss for any goaltender.
Yeah.
He really didn't have very much chance at all in the home opener. So that piece of it's been good. The power play. Obviously, it was what it was on Saturday. On the flip side, the Flyers did have 5 power play goals coming into that game.
In 4 games.
To me, it was a little bit excessive to start booing on the first power play of the game. Right? but it's Philly. It is what it is. I think everybody kind of had a sense this game is just not going the way. There was an instance that this game was not going too well. So, but I think overall the power play has been pretty good. On the whole, penalty kill has been fine. They've only allowed 1 5-on-4 goal.
Yeah,
if you kind of break things down, some plays, a lot of almost plays, some key guys that you really need to take that next step. And it's a lot of players. It's not just 1 or 2 players. It's not just Owen Tippett. It's not just Tyson Forster, right? It's not like Frost having no even strength points. Everything's power play so far. It's a lot of guys. A lot of guys have to play better. Now, last thing I'll say is just keep in mind that there's only been 2 games so far, which is Calgary and Edmonton, where they've even been in the same time zone they were a day or 2 earlier. Everything was hopping time zones, coming back east. It's really hard to get any sort of continuity, any sort of read. Also, there's been just a lot of special teams play too so far. Most games.
Tons. Yep.
Yeah.
If you're not on the power play, you're on the PK half of every period. Yeah. It feels like, especially the first period.
It often tends to be that way early in the season, the NHL anyway.
Refs trying to reset the playbook, or the rule book.
Exactly. I mean, the Flyers were having to kill 5 a game, every game till the home opener, and you're getting a bunch of power plays too. So a lot of line juggling and a lot of things. I mean, it's really been hard to see anybody getting in sync. It's real. I think having a good practice today, and to me, if they can get 3 out of 4 points in the home and home, not an easy task, and Washington's playing well. But you get 3 out of 4 points, and then telling you feel like you kind of righted the ship. It's so early. You can have a stretch of 4 games. It's really 4 because they won the first one. Wasn't a great game, but
if it's in the middle of a season, it's mitigate when you start out that way or you finish that way. Exactly. It's the lasting thought and the beginning thought.
And then otherwise, if you have a bad week, it's just a bad week in the middle of a long seaon.
Yeah.
But that being said, there's a lot of things that they have to correct, and they can't let drag on. You can't sugarcoat that either.
Yeah. Bill, where are we with Sean Couturier? Against Edmonton, he played under 10 minutes. And I remember a year ago, they held Connor McDavid to no shots on goal. He had an assist in that game. And Couturier, I believe, was on the ice for 21 of 24 shifts by McDavid in that game. A year later, he plays under 10 in that one. And then the home opener, his 800th game, he starts on the wing. I know he said after the game that he played a little wing with Claude Giroux. I don't even remember that.
No.
But I don't,
No,
maybe a
and
shift.
maybe it was a mid-game thing,
Yeah.
and maybe I mean, I kind of remember Giroux would take right side draws, Couturier would take left side draws. Giroux was
Hmm.
mostly on left wing by that point,
Yeah.
you know, but Couturier would take a draw on the left side, and Giroux was so good on the right side. I
Yep.
mean, Couturier's not bad on the offside too, but Giroux was just so good on his dominant side that it was just a great 1-2 punch. But I don't remember him settling on wing very much. I remember him in the middle, either right in front of the net or sometimes down low or whatever the case might be. And obviously, you came back in the defensive zone. He's the guy guarding the house, so
Yeah.
I don't really remember him very much at all on the wing. Um, it was a little weird that Coote said after the game he wasn't told till right before the game that you're on wing. Um, I mean, I no
What
reason
do you
to
think
doubt
goes
him.
into the thinking? Is it hey Lawton was on his game in Seattle? We want to move him up, and I mean you could have
I
moved Paling to
guess.
a wing.
I
I don't
guess.
know.
I mean, in Seattle, the line with Lawton and Paling and Hathaway was the Flyers' best line.
Yeah.
But I honestly did not think that until the Seattle game, I didn't think Paling was all that good, or the first, not in the preseason and not the first few games of the season.
Agreed.
Um, and he's played a little bit of wing. He played a little bit of left wing last year, not much, obviously, mostly in the middle. He's mostly been a center, but he's played at least a little bit of wing. Um, and I mean, it changes. The game went along a little bit, but I don't know. It was odd, right? It didn't seem. It caught me a little bit off guard
It caught me off guard too.
when you're having the pregame warm-ups. He's on left wing. I didn't actually write it for sure until I saw the first shift of the game,
Yeah.
and I was like, no, he's definitely on left wing. So, um,
I thought he had his best game there, though, Bill. To be honest with you.
yeah, I did too. I didn't think he was terrible in Seattle either, though. I thought he was
Yeah.
a little bit better in Seattle than he was in the other games too. I mean, he had some kind of pretty rough games to start with. So did other guys too, but I don't know. It's just, to me, sometimes I'm curious as to why that wasn't communicated sooner. I guess they figure he's a pro; he'll handle it wherever you put him. But it just seemed a little odd that a guy who's really been a center his whole life, obviously there was no opportunity even to practice.
Yeah.
He's on left wing, so that was odd to me.
I mean, could this be a situation where you're trying to manage his body? He wouldn't be the first north of 30 player that's been a center his entire career and moved to the wing. I mean, they did it with Giroux.
Yeah.
What it does is he's always been lauded as a 200-foot player,
Yeah.
but playing on the wing's more of a 175-foot player. So
Yes.
there's a lot less, that you have got to. Yeah, you don't have to go down below the dots a whole heck of a lot.
No, yeah, you're not starting. You're not starting out, as you said, below the dots, behind your net quite often.
Yeah.
You take care. Also, a lot of those battles on draws in the D zone where you're not winning them cleanly, it becomes kind of a little bit of a grappling match to kick it to somebody.
Yeah.
When you have a guy that's had back issues, core muscle issues in the past, you do have to be really, really careful as to how you manage his minutes.
Yeah.
Last year I thought he was overused in the first half of the season. So that is something you have to keep an eye on as to what the load management is and whatnot. Again, it was just a surprise. The Flyers are still trying to figure out the middle of the ice. That's not a secret.
Yeah.
Trying to figure what your center rotation is. I was a little surprised that Noah Cates has only gotten one game so far. I actually thought Cates was going to get a second game.
Yeah.
I thought his first game was actually pretty decent, and I thought he'd be out the game after that. But it's just been the one so far. We'll see what they do with the lines in the back-to-back. We'll see if Luchenko plays both games, for example. I'm really curious, and I really have no predictions on it. I want to see what happens in practice and on Tuesday.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because we're getting closer, obviously, with every game that goes by. They've played 5 games. Luchenko has played 4, so he can still play 5 more before they make that decision on what how they're going to move forward with that. Somebody asked me last week on an episode, had sent me a note and said, What do you think will happen with Lutsenko, and what do you want to happen with Lutsenko? And I said, what I want to happen is very simple. I hope this happens, that whatever the best route for his development is, yes. I don't know that answer. I'm not with the player and all those things in those meetings and tape and all of that. I don't know how he's feeling physically, mentally, emotionally, all of that stuff. All I want is the right decision to be made 100%. For long term. I get this team is bereft of centers right now. I can't think in those kind of terms. So, and you do have a guy sitting there in Noah Cates, and look, maybe Lutsenko's a better NHL player right now than Noah Cates, and that means the team won't be as good this year. But if it's better for Lutsenko to go back, then Lutsenko needs to go back.
Yeah,
so
no, I agree.
It's not about what I want; it's about what's right.
Exactly, it's 100% about what's right for him, and it's also about what's right for him from an offensive standpoint. Right? I think he's a guy who could be a pretty darn good offensive player in the NHL as he gets stronger. As he gains experience, as he works on his shot, I still think that's a necessity. He didn't break down the door, so to speak, during the preseason offensively. It was more about his all around game, his smarts, and his speed.
Yeah.
I really want him to be an offensive player who's also reliable without the puck. I think that's there for him. I think he can be that. I don't think he's that yet at the NHL level, which is no criticism. He just turned 18.
Yeah, it's going to be a fascinating one to keep an eye on. You mentioned the juggling of the lines, Bill. We're going to get to some Ask Billy questions in just a second. But it's been a lot of juggling. Like there's a blender on the bench with everybody's number in it, and hey, let's click it. But I do think it's a bit of a detriment when you're shifting D pairs as often as you are. Shifting lines up front to me is one thing. Shifting D pairs is there's a lot of peril in that. Like we see in that Seattle game, the Flyers are come back in the third period to get within a goal 5-4, and York's out with Jamie Drysdale. And York's kind of activated on the left side of the zone, which then becomes the weak side as they rim it to get the breakout. And Drysdale doesn't recognize that York is still trying to get back to his position on the blue line and takes a kind of a Hail Mary pinch there.
Yeah, and it was a killer.
Yeah, it was an absolute killer. There's no way. Had York been on the blue line, as soon as Drysdale starts to pinch, he starts to shade middle and out, and you don't have the breakaway. But now he's chasing the play. It ends up being the 6-4 goal. It's a situational play with 5 minutes left when you have all the momentum coming back to get within one. But doing that, that's part of the equation. And the team is also missing Nick Seeler. Frankly, since he signed his contract on, I think, March 7th, he's played 8 games.
Yeah. And even late last year when he was back, he was still working his way back.
Yeah.
You had the kind of shot blocking injury. He couldn't do a ton of skating before he came back. He wanted to come back for the biggest games of the season. He still wasn't 100% yet. So really, he hasn't had a chance to do that yet. To just settle in and be the player that he was a year ago. And I think that he's a guy who helps calm things down to an extent. I mean, he blocks all the shots. He brings the physical element, that part of it to the competitiveness. But I do think he's one of those guys who on the bench kind of
keeps things in order.
Keeps things in order, and kind of brings a little bit of what not the same personality, but just a little bit of the on the bench element, that a little bit like a Matt Niskanen. Again, not the same player.
Calming.
Right? Calming, but just and a good guy to put a young player with. So. Yeah.
The other thing he would bring as well, Bill, is the accountability for the opposition.
Yeah.
Because I really don't like the fact that Couturier fought once in the preseason and once in the regular season.
Yes.
Farabee has dropped the gloves. Forster's dropped the gloves. I didn't like that Konechny dropped the gloves after taking a really awkward hit in that third period. These guys cannot be fighting. No. One shot to the helmet, broken finger, you're out 6-8 weeks.
Yeah.
They can ill afford for those guys to be dropping. I know you want to come together as a team and have your teammates back. That's something that Nick Seeler can also provide there.
No, he does bring you a little bit of that, and it's needed. You know, he's not a guy who fights a ton, but when he does, it means something.
Yeah, he fought
Right.
Delarier a couple
And
when
yeah,
Delarier was.
and I don't know from a hockey standpoint how much Nick will be in the lineup moving forward. He'll play some certain matchups. You're up against a Ryan Reeves or a Rempe or whatever. He'll
You're
probably
talking
play.
Delarier, yeah.
I'm talking about Delorier. Yeah, he'll play on those nights. But the Flyers don't have, and I'm not even talking from the scoring standpoint. I'm just talking about playing regular shifts and making, you know, he fights when he needs to or whatever. The Wayne Simmons or certainly not a Rick Tocchet type who, again, putting aside the 30 to 40 goals that they score, which Flyers most certainly could use that kind of a power forward too, right? But just in terms of being that guy who's skating regular shifts who keeps the other side honest. He's not playing 5 minutes a night or something. He's playing 15 minutes a night.
Yeah, it's a little concerning that it seemed like a kind of an innocuous thing that Sealer dealt with, and the fact that he still hasn't played is a little concerning. Bill, with Sealer being out, they recalled Emil Andre, yet we didn't see him. I thought there was opportunity there at points. Yegor Zamula has struggled. He's a left side guy, so's Andre. Zamula quarterbacks power play too. Andre can do that. Why did we not see Emil Andre?
I'm not totally sure.
I'm asking you questions that you can't
maybe it was. Yeah. I mean, I think that maybe you don't want to go too small on the back end, right?
Yeah.
York, Drysdale, and Andre in the same.
Then why didn't you recall Jennings?
Why didn't you recall Jennings? If you're not playing him, right? Why not a Louis Belpedio who got in a couple games last year, veteran type, but he's not the guy you're developing, right?
Yeah.
If you have a guy on the trip who is a veteran and if you can play in a pinch, that to me is the spot there, especially because Andre had a darn good training camp. Is an important piece that you're still developing at the American Hockey League level. And I know he's only missed, he missed the home and he missed the first game. But he's missed 3 games so far with the Phantoms. Only one till this weekend. But I thought the Phantoms could have used him against Wilkes-Barre, particularly in Saturday's game. But I know you're trying to develop him for the NHL team and whatnot, but I'm not sure. Again, my best guess is they didn't want to go too small on the back end, but I didn't think that particularly. I wasn't too happy with a couple games that Zamula has played.
Yeah.
And you're still trying to find a little bit of cohesion with your second and third pairings. York and Sanheim they're taking on heavy minutes, which we knew that they would. But I do have some concern about playing them so many minutes. Again, I don't know what other choice you have, but I would have liked to have seen at least a different look out there. I thought there was opportunity also, at least on the West Coast part of the trip, or the West Coast trip rather before they came home.
Let's get to the Ask Billy questions because I could just keep going on and on because I got tons of questions for Ask Billy as well, as you can see. Let's get to this first one. Josh White, we just kind of talked about this, but he said, how big of an impact is the injury to Sealer? I think it's pretty big. You do as well. Yeah. He said he was a shutdown guy last year that was a great stay-at-home D-man that could block any shot. With him down, it seems like the Flyers are missing that. When he'll be back, we don't know. He also said he'd like to see Andre get a shot, which we just took on. I think he would, if Sealer can get back to Bill, he'd provide a big security blanket for Jamie Drysdale, who, to his credit, after that, I think, first game, has not put his body in positions to get not only hit, but blown apart like he stepped on a landmine. So he has gotten his head up in the neutral zone in particular.
Yeah, well, Pospisil freight trained him, right? Yeah. Center ice. That's and the hit he got injured in Pittsburgh last year, the shoulder. It was another time he got freight trained. So, just from a holding up standpoint, be careful out there, right?
Yeah.
I do think he could be a good partner for Drysdale. We saw very little of them together. The intention was after Walker was traded was to get the two of them together. It just because of injuries and whatever, it didn't really get much opportunity to work out. But I do want to see them together, and I want to see. I don't think that coming into this year you drew it up in a way where Eric Johnson was going to play all 5 of the first 5 games, and it worked out that way. The comfort zone, and it should change with Sealer looking at least close to being back. I think Eric will finally have a couple games where he won't play. If he plays 25, 30 games, I think that's about the right workload for him.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. The D is something else that has to come together here, especially when they're trying to find some cohesion up front. You need some cohesion on your D pairs too. And as you said, when you change up D pairs, it really is, so much of it is reading off of one another, and you need such quick communication. A lot of it's nonverbal, and I mean you need the verbal part of it too. But just in terms of just knowing each other's tendencies,
knowing where a guy's going to be when you get crashed on.
Yeah, and I think Sanheim and York have developed that nicely. Each one kind of knowing where the other one will be most of the time. I'd like to see that across all 3 pairs. That's one of many things that need to get better.
Yeah, no doubt. Let's get to the next question, and we're going to ask this one in 3 parts because obviously it was a hot topic. Nick Hankin said, "Will we see a 3 goalie rotation soon?" That's coupled with Flyers Eric saying 2 questions: Am I being too hard on Fedotov? Do you think Torts finishes the season as a coach? We'll get into that second part in a minute. And then Kevin messaged in and said, "How much longer does of a leash does Fedotov get until we see Kolosov? One more start?" Now I'm not sure. Here's what I know, Bill, is that when your goalie's really struggling, I've termed it as it bleeds forward, because it affects everybody that plays in front of him.
Yeah.
Because you do 2 things. You're afraid to make a mistake, and you don't play free of mind, and you have no confidence that the guy can erase a mistake back there. And it affects your D, and it affects your forwards. And the goalie, he knows. He's no fool. I know he knows English now and everything. It's not even about that. I could see the body language when Fedotov let in that first goal.
Yeah.
And then when the second one went in that he carried, he's fighting it. I don't know what the options are here. He comes over, the contract aside, he'll clear waivers, obviously.
Yeah.
But is sending him down this early a viable option?
Well, you have to have a degree of confidence that the guy you're going to call up is at least going to get the job done to a higher degree.
He's kind of in the same thing, though. I mean, he's coming from the KHL as well.
He's a young goalie, still kind of proving himself. Still kind of, very different kind of goalies, very different styles.
Opposites,
night and day, different styles. I think Kolosov is still figuring things out, a lot of things out. I thought his first start of the regular season was pretty good. His second start, he was losing 2-0, then 4-0 before he even knew it hit him. Then he settled in. The rest of the game, he didn't allow another goal. I think he made 29 straight saves after he gave up 4.
Good mental resilience.
Yeah, which tells you something, right?
Yeah.
That was actually part of what impressed Tortorella initially about Urson, because he had that game where he got pulled and had to come back in. And when he came back in, he was really good. He didn't give up another goal in really tough mental circumstances. That was game. Hart came in, Hart had to come out, and Sam went back in his debut, no less.
Yeah.
And he played really, really well. So I thought that was a good thing for Kolosov to do that. The second game of the home and home, Saturday's game, which I did finally have an opportunity to watch today on Sundays. We record this. I watched it earlier. He didn't see a lot of shots at all. I think he only saw 15. The last one was an empty net goal. So it's hard. It's hard when you're only facing 15 shots. And it was that was a 1-0 game going into the third period, and then they gave a power play goal. So, and I said the last one was an empty netter. It was interesting that they went already back to back with them, a Friday Saturday rather against the same team. That really showed they want to test them.
Yeah.
So I think they do want to take a look. How ready is he? How does he handle things as they come up? It's been a little bit of a mixed results, but it's very early yet. I think it's an ongoing competition. There's opportunity. I don't like 3 goalie rotations at all. I know you feel about it even more strongly than I do, Jason, as a goalie. But you always have a guy standing around at practice. It's hard for him to get reps. The guy is scratched. It's just that he can't get any kind of a rhythm. And to me, it just messes up your goaltending. That 3. Yeah. It's
frankly, it's uncomfortable for everybody.
Yeah, and of course the old saying is if you have 3 goals, you don't have 1, right? So and that that's no knock on Urson. I think Urson's really good. They're trying to figure out who the second guy is. That's yet to be figured. That's a work in progress. I don't think there's a ton of leash for Fedotov, but I don't think it's 2 games either. I don't think if he has a next game and it's so, that's where you pull the plug.
If it's bad if he plays Wednesday though, Bill, in Washington on
another stinker and he's pulled.
Yeah.
I think you're in a situation where you can't just sit and watch him struggle too much longer. Again, you want to see improvement. If he's not all the way where you want him to be, but it's better, I think you ride it out a little bit longer. But no, if it's another game where you're holding your breath and it's not just the number of goals, but it's the kind of some of these goals where he's back in his crease. He doesn't look comfortable positioning himself. He's kind of all over the map. He's the kind of goalie he is kind of not in vogue right now. He's a blocking kind of a goalie.
Yeah.
So that's not kind of currently what's in vogue, but as long as you're stopping the puck, right? Even in camp and preseason, to me, it was a little bit up and down. So it definitely monitors watching. I think that you probably end up giving him a few more games. If we're at the end of October, and again, if he has another game where he's pulled and you just can't get 60 out of him, they did not want in Seattle to have to go to Sam Mercer the third period. There was no other choice. You couldn't go and you couldn't have him finish that game. So there was really no choice for that. If you have another game like that, then you do have to say, okay, maybe we push the button here and we call us off now, even before we want to. Yeah. But it's something where it definitely merits concern. Nope, not panic yet. We'll see what happens next start, but definitely concern.
There was a time not that long ago where the albatross, the large goalie, was the thing when, Pekka Rinne was in the league and Ben Bishop and everybody was drafting these huge guys and Stolarz, but Stolarz has learned to be able to move around the net very well for a big guy. But you look at the best goalies in the league right now. Look at the guys that are getting contracts like Swayman, 6'2". I think more like 6'1". Ottinger, not the biggest. They're not these enormous goals. Shesterkin's not a big guy. Sorokin's not a big guy. Vasilevsky, he is big. But it is more, and the way the game's gone with so much east-west, everything is a cross-ice pass first to raise the level of that scoring chance. That lateral mobility is a huge element. I think Sam's been really good with that here early in the season and tracking. And, Kolosov is a kid that can absolutely move around the net extremely well. Does kind of remind you of Bobrovsky in some ways. So we'll see where this goes with Fedotov. I imagine he'll get the game on Wednesday.
I think so.
And then pending how that goes, we see where they go. But I think there's a chance Ersson could get the home and home or the 2 games on the weekend in the back-to-back.
Yeah, just because the starting times are staggered. So
the 1 o'clock and then 7. So that could be. and a way for them to be able to get him in both. And again, it'll depend on workload as well. So we'll see where it goes. Timo tweets in hashtag Ask Billy and says, "How do we feel about Michkov's skating?" He said, "I remember when Barkov was a rookie, and you could see the talent, but he lacked explosiveness in his stride." He said, "I'm not comparing playing styles, but I could see and hope that Michkov develops his skating similarly." To me, Michkov really wants to get the game into the smallest area he can. He's not going to streak up the wing and burn by guys. Yeah. I don't know that that's ever going to be his game. Mm-hmm. I really don't. To me, he's not really a transition player, to be honest with you, Bill. He can do stuff in transition because as everybody's moving fast, he'll come in slow and kind of disrupt that rhythm for the team defending. Kucherov is not, a transition player. He's a guy that will just kind of calm you down defending him, and he'll just rip you to shreds. I see Michkov very similarly in that regard.
I totally agree, and I think right now it's why he's so much better on the power play, and he'll figure it out. You don't need burning speed to be a highly effective player. Look, was Claude Giroux ever a speed demon? No. And a small player on top of it too. Yeah. Just so much smarter and sees the ice well. I mean, all those traits that made G such a special player. I think Michkov has a lot of those same traits too. So I'm not too worried about it, but I don't think he's ever going to be a guy who gets a ton of separation and ton of breakaways. And he's not Pavel Bure, right?
He ain't the Russian rocket.
Yeah. So I think his edge work is very good, and his straight line speed is pretty average, but he can work with it.
Yeah, it's not something that's going to hold him back. He's just so damn creative, and being so patient with the puck. Sometimes that'll, especially on the power play, a team's like, "Will you just do something with it?" And they kind of get mesmerized by the one player, and as his reputation grows, that'll happen more and more often, and it's going to allow players on the power play with him to find a spot where he can get it to them.
Yeah, they're going to have to hit the net better though.
Oh, no question.
Whether it's tip or even connecting a few times. Connecting's had a few from that kind of just inside the bumper or whatever.
He chipped that one over the net in the third period, and that was
another potential goal on the stick. And Tippett's missed a bunch too. So guys have to get open, make themselves a target, but they have to do their part. And you're not going to always put them in, but you at least you have to put them on the net. And that's that Michkov can't do for them. Those guys have to do that themselves.
Bill, last question for you. Yeah. If you have the answer to this, I'd love to know it.
All right.
Why is goal scoring and lack of goal scoring contagious? It's like hitting in baseball.
Yes, yeah.
Everybody seems to struggle at the same times, and then all of a sudden everybody's hitting at the same time. In hockey, it's the same way. It's all of a sudden, and we don't even know why or when it will change. Just all of a sudden, goals will just start going. It's so random that it happens, but it is contagious.
Yeah. On an individual level, I guess the cliche is, one goes off your skate or your shin pad or your butt or whatever. You're relaxed, but there is an element to just not overthinking it, just shooting it. That's a piece of it. I think also that it takes there's a certain goal scorer's mentality, and that I know that's an overused phrase, but I'm talking about goal scorers who tend not to have long droughts. Everyone has some droughts. But the Flyers have guys who will score 5 in 7 games and then none or 1 in 15 games.
Yeah.
Right. That's the difference between the guys who end up with 40 goals and the guys who end up 28 or 25 or whatever. It's not how they are at their peak, but it's just how many valleys are there in the course of a season. It is very much hitting in baseball. It is very much contagious. There's also the piece of the puzzle, and I remember when Mike Yeo was his brief tenure as Flyers head coach, I thought he hit something on the head talking about some of the young players on the team. At that time, he said, it's easy it's easy to be effective when you're going with the flow and everything's kind of going well for the team, that you just kind of jump in with everybody else and all of a sudden, you're contributing. It's when things are hard to come by and every inch of the ice is a fight and kind of nothing's going right for the team. Do you start throwing hope passes and they get picked off, or shooting wildly, or making defensive mistakes? Or are you the guy who takes the bull by the horns and stabilizes things and makes that play?
Yeah.
The Flyers are still looking for those guys that when you really need that stabilizer, that momentum changer. TK can do that sometimes.
Yeah.
There'll be a time when nothing is going right. He'll make a play, and all of a sudden it shifts momentum. He's not the superstar kind of guy who could do that with regularity, but he can do it sometimes. But the Flyers need more guys who can do it sometimes.
Yeah.
And I think all those things are a piece of the puzzle, but none of it answers all of it.
Yeah. Good answer. You found a way to answer a question I didn't have an answer for. Read Bill's work at PhiladelphiaFlyers.com, NHL.com, and HockeyBuzz.com. Tomorrow's episode will preview the Flyers' first Eastern Conference game, first division game as well, Metro opponent with the Washington Capitals, the first of a home-and-home tomorrow night at Wells Fargo Center. So join us then on a brand new Flyers Daily.